expenses paid trip to the lovely state of Rhode Island. I put the link in for signing up for that in the Etherpad. So please sign up. That would be fantastic. We're still looking for one more instructor. And then we've got fall coming up, and that's about it. So let's see. I'll start at the top. How about the SEC study group? Any updates?
I think that they're not joining because the time zones aren't super agreeable, but this is just updates we can read and skim. They're working on translations in Bengali, I think.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So it's essentially, do we want to run around? Who wants to go next? Any other updates?
I can go.
Okay.
If everyone is, I have to catch up on my typing here though. So we did 4 kind of software carpentry inspired workshops in June, and we had pretty good success. So instead of doing like 2 full days, we just broke them up into 4 Thursday afternoons from 1 to 4ish, and we covered the Unix, the R. We did that over 2 sessions, and then version control with Git, and that they went well. We had a lot of registration, obviously more than people showed up. I think one of the sessions had almost 50 people register, and then all the sessions had, I think the lowest attendance was 17, so the other ones all had, some had like 25, 30 people there, which was good. And then this summer, so then we did that, and then we kind of took a break because we needed a break, and now we're going to, I think our next event will be a workshop on writing with LaTeX, and we're actually trying to loop in somebody from the career counseling because the theme of it is going to be updating the CV. So people were like, oh, well, we should get somebody else to come in and talk about some good content on that. So that's what we're up to.
Oh, do we have somebody else new join the call?
Yeah, sorry, I'm Dan. I'm just testing to see whether I'm muted or not.
Yeah, we've got you. So do you have the link for the Etherpad as well?
Yeah, I'm on.
Great, perfect. All right, so, thanks, Tom. Who wants to go next?
I can go next.
Great.
Azza from University of Khartoum, Sudan. We started kind of late in April this year, and we had a kind of couple of sessions going through the basics of Linux and GitHub and the terminal and R. We had a couple of sessions following the book Bioinformatics Data Skills, and then we kind of went slow in late May because of political situation in the university and also power cuts in the country. But then we are planning to go back in a couple of weeks to go back to have invited guests and go on with our books and strategies and so far.
Great, thank you. Anybody else?
I guess my update is kind of, I'm the UW-Madison group. My update is no updates. We were adjourned for the summer, which has kind of been a nice break for me. I'm energized to get back to the fall, but still got a couple months.
Enjoy the summer.
Yeah.
Who's next? Are those all the updates, or do anybody else want to go?
I think if I can chime in too, I sent an email out to a bunch of folks from across the study group saying if you couldn't join, could you please just put your updates in the pad? So there's probably a few updates that no one's here to read. I think the Women in GeoViz study group in San Francisco, for example, and UBC, they're both super busy today, I guess, so they couldn't join. But there's a lot of progress at UBC in the R utility belt suite, so that's like a bunch of R lessons. And in the Women in GeoViz study group, it's kind of cool actually. No one else, I guess, besides me gets a scope on the spread of study groups and the themes, but people some people keep it pretty open and they teach lessons on Git and they teach R and they teach some Python and they teach a bunch of different programming languages that might be useful for scientific disciplines. But some of them are also kind of niche and they pick themes like the Women in GeoVis one, which is just an all-women study group based on geospatial visualizations and geospatial data work. So hopefully we'll figure out a way to highlight on the website. I'll talk about it a little bit later, how we have a new page on the website for the study groups. But I also want to eventually work in some thematic sorting so you can find out who else is doing a study group on a topic that might interest you, and maybe you could do some cross study group sessions. That's all. Okay, Rob, maybe Rob can go next because I think he's on the call.
Oh, Rob's having AV issues.
Okay.
So at this point, is Joey? Joey, have you joined us?
I don't think he has. I don't know where he is. And unfortunately, I can't switch screens to chat with him because I'm recording. So if I do, then I will switch to my chat screen. So maybe Xana or Steph, could you write to him and see if maybe, I don't know, he's too busy. Otherwise, I can go through his updates too. Mostly, I just invited him because he gave a Git workshop with Steph in Vancouver. I think it was in Vancouver. And he built this little friendly GitHub intro for it, which is up on line 89. And you can fork it and use it yourselves. It's a nice little tutorial. And then he also included a bunch of tools and considerations that you might have in setting up that tutorial and also setting up any other type of Git work with a group. He had a lot of feedback and details from the community that showed up for his workshop. So I think it's going to evolve based on that kind of feedback. So what did people respond to? What did they wish they had more time to do? It's kind of hard to teach, as most of you know, to teach something that involves command line work or any kind of particular setup on your laptop, because you end up spending a lot of time working on that setup and not necessarily on learning the things you want to. So yeah, I don't know if he'll be able to join. It's such a bummer. But
I just chatted him, Aurelia, so I will let you know if I hear anything back.
okay.
In the meantime, if there's a little gap in time here, I would love to talk about just 5 minutes on the study group orientation materials that we're creating.
Totes.
So I'm Xana Marsh. I'm the instructional designer for Mozilla Science Lab, which means I make learning materials and experiences, everything from workshops to like online learning modules. And some of you have met me at various events. Some of you I don't know as well. I'm hoping to meet you guys, all of you, at some point. What I can say, I should just say a little bit about my background. So I come from a academic teaching background in digital media and media arts. I also worked at a science museum for many years developing content for science museum exhibits, and also more generally doing content design and development, interaction design for museums and cultural centers. So I'm sort of here to bring some flair and magic to our learning materials, and also just think more strategically about what we're presenting to people. What we've decided to do is update and modify this study group onboarding or orientation materials a bit. And all of you guys have probably looked at and used Bill's great study group handbook, but we also wanted to create a learning experience that was a little more focused on just a little more well-rounded in terms of what's there. So we wanted to include an introduction to GitHub because we know so many people have been struggling. And so some of the materials that Joey worked on, which he will hopefully merge and be presenting today, he and I worked on together. And then we're also sort of looking at more materials on facilitation, how to get your groups going, conversations over the last year with people starting study groups. We're looking at sort of like what are some of the struggles people have with maintaining momentum, how to get more people coming, how to do publicity, what are resources we can offer you in terms of, say, putting flyers up around your department. We're also looking at standardizing the lesson templates, or creating a lesson template that's a little bit more standard. So you can tell if a lesson is intermediate, advanced, beginner, and you can tell what other materials you might need to know to start that lesson. So these are some of the things that we're thinking about doing in study group onboarding. And then the other really big thing I'm working on now is a kind of open science, open research 101. Since so many people come into study groups really to learn to code, but don't have quite as much exposure in open science and open research, that's something that we want to give you guys a little bit more background on, say, code review, open access publication, how to think about putting your data on a repository if eventually that's something you want to do, just sort of the ins and outs of open science and open research. So basically it's going to be a 5 or 6 unit orientation that you can do online in a few hours. And we're hoping to launch it in September. We're looking for people to talk about their experiences in short videos about their study groups and running them, so people get a sense of how that all works. So I'm just going to put some more information about this in the pad, and if you're interested in helping out developing these materials so other people can get their study groups started, that would be awesome. I think it looks like Joey is on, so perfect timing.
Yeah, totally. Thank you, Xana. I also put some notes down on line 81. So if you want to plop in the link to the thing you described, then feel free to do it there. And also fix my notes if I didn't type fast enough. Hello, Joey. Welcome.
Hello. Hi, everyone. Sorry about that. Yeah, totally made a big mistake. So, but now I'm here.
Great. Hi, Joey. This is Jeff.
Hello. Hi.
So I guess what we'll do now is I'll do a very quick introduction. It'll be the one-line introduction that Joey provided for me, in that he's with Mozilla Science Lab as one of the Mozilla Science Fellows, and he's just enjoying summer in Vancouver. And so I don't think I need to say too much more than that, and I'll let Joey expand on that and then jump into his discussion about friendly GitHub.
Sure. So hello and hi everyone. Thanks so much, Jeff, for the intro. So as you've all been aware, today's session is about GitHub and introducing that to all of the various audiences that you might be introducing it to. And so back in February, I think, or maybe it was March, Steph Wright and I put together this friendly GitHub intro, basically with the intention that if you need to introduce GitHub to people who have never used it before, who aren't maybe even convinced that GitHub is a thing that they need to or want to use, here is sort of the most expansive, or at least this most expansive version that we could come up with in the few weeks that we had. So if you browse through the repo and through the website, you'll see a bunch of Google presentation slides, kind of trying to present various aspects of the terms of GitHub that we all know and love, and that are also very confusing in the beginning. It introduces a lot of the desktop tool, so I think that was something that when you want to go from just using GitHub, the website, and move into the workflow of working something locally on your computer, sending it to the web. I think that process is pretty mysterious in the beginning as well. So we wanted to try to go through that as much as possible and get people working through that. So I guess maybe just to start, I want to give major shout out to Steph, who put in loads and loads of time to make that happen. And it wouldn't have been as awesome without her, because she even drove all the way up from Seattle to Vancouver, which is no small task, and that was amazing. So major thumbs up to her. But I guess in order to make all of this happen, there are loads of tools and little handy helpers, I guess, to make this process easier. So in the Etherpad on line 91, I've got a list of handy tools. If anybody else has got like suggestions or things that they use, totally throw them in there. But to start, I use this tool called Gift Grabber, which is something that Richard actually threw me onto, and it's a tool for making animated GIFs. You might notice in some of the presentation slides in the friendly GitHub intro that there are a number of GIFs that kind of show a particular workflow, and so that's definitely one to check out. It kind of is a little spotty sometimes, like the resolution can come out like really bad, so definitely you have to like fiddle with it sometimes. Not always ideal, but it's one possibility. And I guess maybe I think it's Aurelia's color, lice cap, or maybe that's Steph. That looks yeah, it's like a terrible name, really awful, but maybe it's cool, who knows. The next thing is QuickTime screen capture and YouTube. So I think one big piece of feedback that we got during the workshop was that people thought the GIFs were like really jarring and were like just struggling to like keep up with the GIFs. So they requested that there would be more YouTube videos. And so we used, I have a Mac, so QuickTime Screen Capture was really nice for that. And then YouTube, obviously, just to get it onto the web. You can also use Vimeo, but I think they limit you on the amount of like high def videos you can put up. So yeah, that would be my recommendation for videos. Google Forms, like this was also huge for us, like to have feedback like pre and post the workshop. Yeah, we've got like really great data from that experience, and I think with GitHub, like every audience is so different. I think at our workshop we had like people from like geography, but we also had people from like zoology and mathematics, and I think even some social science people as well. So I think the types of examples people connected with were really different, and yeah, I guess just having feedback on like, oh, what could have been done better, maybe if we knew that the audience were going to be like a different sort of demographic, we could come up with like examples that suited them. So I totally recommend doing some surveys before and after. And then similar to Google Forms, but maybe the user experience is like 10 times better, is Typeform. The Typeform surveys are really cool. They like give you this like modern web experience with like animations and stuff. I took a survey on bubble tea, and like I just kept wanting to answer questions. So so that's kind of cool. I basically like all of the workshops and stuff were written in Markdown, and if you're using GitHub, you're very familiar with Markdown. But I think in the beginning, to convince you and others to write in Markdown, it's really cool to have a Markdown editor that gives you a live preview. And so if you look at something like Mao or Moo, it gives you the live preview, which is quite nice. And then there are other like Windows-based editors and stuff like that. So, and like plugins for Sublime Text and Add Up and all that. So definitely it's nice to have like a preview for what you're writing and what the format is going to look like. And I guess the last two things, for diagrams, if you're interested in drawing like kind of relationships between things, I just use Mac's Sketch app, which is like the license is $100 and you can have it forever instead of paying like a bajillion dollars every month for Illustrator. But there are also alternatives. There's this thing called Draw.io, which is pretty cool. There's this thing called Illustrio that's supposed to be really nice. So holler at Aurelia for I think that. And Google Slides, you can also put shapes and stuff on that too. So there are a whole suite of options. Now to get into like the more like less like super technical things and more into like the interesting kind of feedbacky things. So I think, yeah, as I mentioned earlier, it was like super crucial to have staff help and build this thing. I think also is like, since I use Git and GitHub quite often, it's also great to have somebody who's like, yo, I just don't understand what the heck you're talking about. Like, this whole workflow is super choppy. Like, I would never do anything like this. So can you explain like why? And and then Steph like was really great about keeping everyone like on the ground. And yeah, so that was super duper nice. And also just the amount of work it takes. Like, she came up with the whole glossary, which I wouldn't have had time for. I think I was like even writing more stuff the day of the workshop, so that was super nice. Also, reaching out in advance for helpers is like totally crucial. So depending on the number of people you have, I think even Steph and I couldn't have been able to like walk around and help everyone. And so we just got a quick tip like, oh, you should just post on like the stats 545 class here at UBC. But you might have like your local versions of like maybe technical people who just want to help out and get into the community. And we had two great guys, Matt and Will, who just spent the afternoon with us. I mean, we had like pizza that was provided by the library, and then we went out for food afterwards. So I think in a way, if you can get helpers, I think it makes people feel like way more comfortable, and like there's also like multiple perspectives, because the way one person might explain something is totally different from another person. So definitely having the more the merrier. So bring friends. And so aside from like the human capital, there's also like all the things like what is handy to have into the GitHub, or what is handy to have in the GitHub repository. And so like I wrote a few essentials on line 120, like the license, the code of conduct, humans.txt or MD or whatever, just to note who was all involved and all that is super handy and cool to like recognize who worked on the thing. There's like a planning file, so like it's super nice, I guess, to give people a hint of what they're going to get into. I think like some people already had the idea that, oh, maybe this isn't going to be advanced enough for me, but they came and checked it out anyways. And then around lunchtime, they're like, okay, we're going to peace out because this is sort of confirmed that it's not as advanced. But I think for other people who were like, oh man, you know, it would, having a schedule was kind of cool as a way to see like, oh, if I can just get to whatever 11 o'clock, we'll be able to do this thing that has been like really confusing. And then also like I thought it was handy to have a few examples. So in the repository, there's a few example projects, I guess, with a few things that people might work on. So like there's, for example, like a recipe that you might want to version control, or like a web mapping project, or portfolio. And I think different people have like different agendas for what and why they'd want to use GitHub. So giving people those options to play around at the workshop is kind of cool, because you're familiar with like the content, you can go around and help people with those things. And yeah, that's sort of maybe one possibility. And you know, if you have like a specific audience, like all physicists or something like that, you can come up with some kind of fun physics example. I think for us, Steph, we made a party. We made like a big GitHub party, and we planned a party together. So you might notice in like the friendly GitHub intro, the work along thing that we all did. It was like 20 people contributed to this repository. It was like how to plan a party, and everyone kind of sent photos and little bits of information that they thought would be interesting. Okay, so let's get into the questions and comments. So we're talking about setting up our own repo. we've had the suspicion that our colleagues are hesitant to be public about their learning work. Any thoughts? So I would say that I think GitHub is essentially a tool for learning, and so there's if it's very clear that this repository is a place where you're like a sandbox in a way, then I think there is maybe in a way, like, I don't think people are judging you, and I think anyone that would be judging you would be smart enough to be like, oh, well, this is clearly like a sandbox. And I guess educational accounts have unlimited private repos now. So if you're very, embarrassed with all that stuff, and you can also delete repositories too, or take them offline. So that would be, there's many ways around that, I guess. I would just say that I have plenty of friends who are just posting stuff all the time, and I don't know. I think it's kind of cool to see like what people are up to, and it's also like nice reference to see like to go back in time and all that. So let's see. On line 134, can you say more about why you think they're concerned about showing their work? Okay. Are you using data you want to keep private? Oh, okay. So the data privacy thing, I think that gets answered by the private repos. Yeah. So can you also use a repo as a temporary thing and then delete it after the workshop? Yes. The answer is yes. I'm going to just put a big yes there. Oh, except I can't write anything in the ether. Okay. Yes. Okay, cool. So line 136. Okay, that seems to all be related to the same thing. I'm going to skip to line 140. Can you say something more about the audience you work for this workshop? Right. So the audience was definitely, it was pretty diverse, but most everyone was from was starting from the very beginning. So most people had never made a commit before. Most people didn't even know what commit meant. And I think it was really, it wasn't specifically science. It was, there were grad students, librarians, a bunch of grad students from all over the school, and like even staff. So like I think my staff grad advisor was there as well. So I think that made it both really cool because we can really speak to this general audience, and I think it was like kind of the added challenge that sort of worked out for all of us, because then we had to really explain everything clearly, I guess. And the range of skills, I mean, I think a lot of people a lot of interest was in managing. So like, how do I manage a project through GitHub? Not necessarily becoming like the Uber GitHub guru, but more like, what can we do to just create better workflows and like get people to do things more transparently. Yeah, I guess that's the word. And like I think, for example, like the librarians are like, well, we could use GitHub for like GitHub pages to make websites. We could use, I think like the staff like, we could actually plan events using GitHub and stuff like that. So I think a lot of it was about project management in the end, and then all the researchers who wanted to use GitHub, I think they had this sort of dilemma of, well, we want to use GitHub for version control, but we're afraid about getting scooped and all that stuff. And Steph explained really well that, in a way, it's not, that shouldn't even be a concern, because you are, in a way, claiming that that code bit and all that stuff. So that was sort of things that we talked through that. And how did you set it up and get attendees? That's a great question. So we did like a massive like outreach thing via Twitter, and also the library was the group that hosted us. So, and I would say like all of you people out there, like go holler at your library. They're like really great, and like want to do new, cool, exciting things, but need like cool people to like help run these things, because I think the libraries are already super oversubscribed. And so when we said like, hey, we want to do GitHub Intro, like all of them like kind of did the wave. It was really exciting. So and they bought pizza for us, and I think there's a lot of benefit to taking advantage of all the services that they have. And they gave us like this really super nice space, and this massive screen. I think maybe there's some pictures floating around about the space out online. But so yeah, I think that was a big sort of way to bring people in from all over the place, because then they advertise through all of the listserv channels on campus, which is cool. And why did we decide to do the workshop? I think we were looking just for like a platform, like an experimental like group of guinea pigs that we could just test, like if we were to build a GitHub intro to the best of our ability, or at least like to the best of our ability in like 2 weeks or something, how far could we get? We had this working open workshop in Berlin, and I think it assumed a certain amount of GitHub knowledge, but it still started at the very beginning. And I think we wanted to just take it like one step further and go through those workflows in a way that that we couldn't at the working open workshop. So we drew a lot from the working open workshop, and we built on top of that. And I think, yeah, that was basically the motivation. And then now, like, I think at Mozilla, they're interested in like remixing the workshop to help people to like onboard people to GitHub who have never used it. And I know that even you'd think like, oh, Mozilla, like everyone's super technical and stuff, but like I work at the Mozilla office down in Vancouver, and people are still in the very early stages, like especially like the designers who are like crucial to the whole process of making things really beautiful, and the user experience super nice. But they're still like, like how do I commit this, or how do I make a pull request and stuff. So I think having this resource just in general for us was like really important. And then the last question, how do you think attendees are using what they've learned now? So as far as our post-feedback survey went, like it was just like a week or so after the event, or like actually we had people fill out the survey at the event, at least the ones that were there. I think essentially they just wanted more time. So they wanted more time and more examples. So like I think my mistake was like we gave them like tons of time to work on like a few examples, but they wanted like way more variation. They wanted to go through the process like over and over and over again with like different things. And so I would say that if you do structure, if you have like whatever a whole day of time to do this, I would say like make many small examples, and rather than like 1 or 2 big examples. I think yeah, having more practice through the workflow with people around, I think was what people wanted. And I would hope that attendees are using GitHub more and kind of exploring it for all of the possibilities. Like I think one thing we tried to do is plug things like GitHub pages and stuff at the end to be like, wow, you can make like full web pages and stuff if you just stick with it a little bit further. So that seemed to work out. So I hope I answered those questions. On line 148, is it possible to reuse the website layout for the content or for other content? Yes, please do. We totally like. I think even the license indicates like it's like CC by or something, but or something maybe even easier. But yeah, it's all open for you to use. Like if you dig into the HTML, you'll see like where which points everything corresponds to. So yeah, just fill it out and just do your thing. That's exciting. And I think just one note on that, I think it helped people like to have this coherent structure and something that looked familiar between all the pages. I think, I don't know, I think a lot about like user experience and all that stuff. And I think it helps when you have this layout that I don't know, it like feels feels kind of trustworthy, like I could trust this web page, and so yeah, so check that out. And 149, curious to know on this call, who has done GitHub intros in their study groups? +1 here if you have done this. Okay, cool. So I think that was maybe a step thing. I don't know. Okay, somebody else. Anyways, yeah, I think that covers a bunch of things that I want to talk about. If there's any other questions, feel free to tweet at me or email me or whatever. I'm around. I guess there's
Great.
Yep. Hello.
Thanks, Joe. This is Jeff. Or if there's any other questions that are on the video or on the Etherpad, either speak up now or you can send Joey a tweet. So that was great. We haven't done one yet, mostly because people are still wanting to know how to spell R. So Git is too many letters. So we're still in those phases, and I'd love to do one, but I'm trying not to be the force that drives the study group. So let's see. Where else? So we've gone through the study group updates. Is there anything else, Aurelia, that we need to cover on this call?
Oh, sorry, I was muted. I have a section at the bottom for around line 206 for strategies to keep things going in the summer. We don't have a lot of time left, but if you have any ideas of how you're keeping your study group going, or a lot of people sound like they're on kind of a hiatus or a little bit of a break because of the population at universities is not so dense in the summer. But yeah, it would be great if you could put some tips there. And then there's a bunch of Git resources that I put under line 215 along with the new lessons that actually were lessons posted last week that I didn't have a chance to talk about. But yeah, there's some YouTube channels to watch and learn things about Git. There's some immersion training stuff, so little tutorials that are kind of like code school where you go through and you do things in the browser. And there's some cheat sheets and a bunch of GitHub materials because they have a whole education platform now that has videos and tutorials and exercises to teach people how to use GitHub. And there's a bunch of study group lessons too that I put under line 34 or 234 to go back to the question about who's taught in their study groups. And I just copied them from the lessons repo. So if you've used them or you think they're cool, +1 them, or if you think they're outdated and they need to be updated, that feedback is always sad but welcome.
Great. So I guess at this point, I saw a few people putting in the strategies. So Vancouver strategy is full immersion. They're going every Friday. Let's see, there's another one coming in. Looks like still being edited. Yeah, for us, we've been mostly hiatus with just a couple meetings. But I guess so. The next call is, when is the next call? Looks like down on 268, August 12th, and having gone through, finally, this is I think the third time really that I've been slated to do the emceeing, and luckily nobody got sick this time, so I'm good to go. But so if somebody wants to volunteer for the next one on August 12th, either put your name there or get in touch later. And we've got 10 minutes left, but I don't know if there's anything else we want to cover.
Oh, I have an announcement, kind of. On line 244, our fellowship call for applications closes at midnight tonight. So if you are thinking of applying, you should finish your application and turn it in. Joey's one of our fellows, and look how great he is. And he does all these awesome things like Git workshops and libraries. Yeah, so apply. And then along line 243, so we have a new place for study groups on our website now. And it's super cute. I'm going to make the map interactive soon. That's on my to-do list. But right now you can search by locations for a bunch of study groups, and you can find out more about study groups. And we have a different workflow for starting a study group. So it's pretty cool, and it's going to evolve. And hopefully, as Xana builds the materials for study group lead onboarding, we'll be able to put videos up and some more multimedia and things. So I like the emoji. I don't know who put that in, but the little globe. It's very nice. Yep, that's pretty much it. All the updates. I'm really sorry about the recording and the Hangouts on Air and the audio issues. I guess the people who can't hear won't hear my apology. Oh well. But I'll also put it in the pad and apologize there. And anyone else have any updates or questions? And I would really like a volunteer too for the MC. No joke, it helps me out a lot.
All right, I put in the chat your apology for those who can't hear.
Thanks.
All right, so this is your last chance to get in on this call. So if we don't hear anything, we will go ahead and say goodbye.
Bye, everyone.
All right, thanks all. Thank you, Joey.
All right, thank you.